The I literally was having this conversation with a client yesterday because she's never got super lean before. And
Okay.
I was like, you need to get super lean. So we're gonna do it.
It's the most
And
fun.
yeah, like you got to do it. It's the most fun. Fun to be defined later, but you need to do this. It's very important for you. Forget about fun. You need to do this.
Yeah.
She goes, okay, I guess I'm doing it. And yeah, a lot of that conversation is the same thing where it's like I'm like, she'll reach out every well, at least once a week, which is typical, and she'll be like, hey, struggling. Cool. This is what I expected.
Yep.
And then I'm like, just so you know, this choice struggle that you're having, because that's usually what it is, right? It's rooted in like, I want this, but I don't want this, but I'm struggling with this choice. And you're saying like the illusion of choice is like, what I'll tell her is I'm like, remember the choice is already made.
Hmm.
It's way easier if you just tell yourself this decision's already made. This is why I don't use a lot of bandwidth during dieting, right? Or at least like I try and conserve as much as I can. And one of the ways that I do that is by already making up the decision. Like it's already made. And I actually that's where I find a YouTube video that I just dropped on like maintenance phase. That can be like way harder for people because you're like, ooh, the decision's not necessarily already made. You're like, I got some flexibility here. So this is actually a little harder.
Yeah. Maintenance phases, in my opinion, are one of the most underutilized tools in our toolbox when it comes to building habits, building a relationship with food, understanding your own psychology.
Yeah.
There's a certain amount of, I use the word fun, but ultimately I mean personal growth
Yeah.
that happens when you're depriving yourself or you're manufacturing some sort of stressor within your life, whether that be training or learning a skill. But when you have all these options on the table, it really challenges where your priorities lie. And I think people in general do quite a poor job of identifying what their actual priorities are. So there's an exercise I do with the coaches that I mentor where I ask them to identify the 5 top priorities in their life. But the caveat is that whatever you put at number one has to come before number two. So you never say yes to number two if it means infringing on number one, and
Right.
so on and so forth.
Okay.
So for me, it was me, live, family, training and nutrition, work. So work was 5. And I was having a conversation with one of them and one of the mentees in specific, who's a very devout religious person, and I was like, if you took my same priorities and then you put God at the top, business isn't even in your top 5.
Right.
And that was like an eye opener for her
Hmm.
because she realized like she had been making choices that didn't align with her priorities,
And then she was unhappy or
and then
feeling
she was unhappy.
friction.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
Tons
Yeah.
of friction, tons of anxiety.
Yeah.
And these are the same things a lot of our clients feel when they're going through these, choices in their life. But ultimately, if you're clear on what your priorities are, the choice is already made, as you said. There is an
Yeah.
illusion
It's
of
simpler.
choice.
Yeah.
And the decision fatigue that you face and all these other things that people obsess about or get hung up on or paralyzed with, it just fades away. It's so much more calm and so much easier. And ultimately, the results are better, you're happier, and you look great naked. So that's ultimately what we do.
Dude, it's a good deal. That's why, like, I don't know if you utilize this at all. I'm sure you've used it maybe based on contextual situations and scenarios,
Mhm.
but like, I use this quite a bit with clients. Is I give them an out all the time because a lot of times people are projecting the guilt and like pressure they put on themselves. They're projecting it onto me as their coach, so they're assuming and kind of weirdly might even want me to be harder on them and what however they define harder on them is, right? But what I do is I will often be like, if they're struggling with that misalignment that you're talking about, is at some point getting clear on that, like exercises like you talked about. I think you're like really really good, and I'll probably have to steal a version of that. Like that's perfect. But
Serious.
what I'll do is I'll give them the out and be like, if you're struggling to behave in a way that is in alignment with the things you say you want, then maybe you don't want them, and that's okay. But do you want to go a different direction? Because maybe the thing we're going after that you've hired me for, you don't actually want it. You don't have to. Like, you're not stuck in this. Like, if you want it, if you hire me, you're like, dude, I want to get a six pack. I want this. I want that. I want whatever. And I'm like, cool. Here's the plan. Here's the roadmap. Here's how we're gonna get here. I laid it all out. Go execute. and then you're however long in, and there's like a big misalignment, we might just need to recalibrate things and you need to reframe some things and I can coach you through it. The other thing is you might not actually want what you said. And we need to also have an open conversation about that. And you need to be open that like, yeah, maybe I don't. For the last like 30 years of my life, I said I want this, but I actually don't really want this more than I want pizza 3 times a week. It's like, that's fine. I'm not judging you for that. But you have to be clear about that. I'm judging you for lying, actually. Like, like you need to be clear to yourself and honest with yourself about what you actually want. That's probably more important than hiring me to get leaner or whatever you want.
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily call them my preferred method and giving them an out, but I ask a lot of questions. I do
Yeah.
more so like motivational interviewing style,
Right.
where I will ask them about, the true value of those goals that they've set. Because ultimately, when someone says, "Hey, I want to get dick skin shredded," they don't actually want to get dick skin shredded. They want what comes with getting dick skin shredded. They want the self confidence. They want the attention from their partner or attention from potential partners, right?
Yeah.
Or even have a guy who's like, I want to be the most jacked baseball coach on the field because I want my kid to be proud of me. I'm like, okay, so this, by virtue of this physical result, you get an emotional gain.
Right.
And then that's essentially just diving into their motivations and what the why is, defining the why.
Yeah.
And then I give people choices. I say, listen, you're not tied to what we're doing, like you said. I'm not going to force you to do anything. Ultimately, the way that you act on a daily basis is your own execution of agency. And if you want to achieve the goal, we have a roadmap that will get you there.
Right.
I'm more than happy to try infinite other roadmaps that require different levels of trade-offs.
Yep.
But we have to have a discussion about expectations, timelines, and all of those things. So I see this a lot in the bodybuilding space where people will complain about hard work, or people will complain, oh,
Yeah.
I'm so tired today, blah, blah, blah. Like,
Yeah.
then don't do it.
Right.
Like, you
Yeah.
chose to do this. You chose to sign up for the show. You
Yeah. Yeah.
chose the struggle.
Yeah.
And I think looking for validation is a big piece, because maybe they don't have the confidence in themselves, or maybe they need that external reminder sometimes, which is fine. Like,
Yeah.
we all need that person in our life, or
Totally.
those people in our life, to kind of cheer us along.
Mm-hmm.
But people cheer you along when you start, and people cheer you along when you achieve the goal. That inner part is all you, baby.
Yeah. Right.
And I
Right.
love that. I embrace that, because for me, that's been training for my whole life, has been
Right.
training as a vehicle for personal development.
Yeah.
And a big part of our philosophy of coaching is on teaching people how to embrace that process and finding
Right.
their own motivations through that, digging into their own psychology, like we do. And when we ask questions, like, us as coaches are facilitators, we're
Right.
guides. We aren't dictators. We're also not hand holders. And if you do either of those things, I think you deprive the client of ultimately learning more about themselves.
Right.
So if you position yourself as the guide, and I mean, the hero's journey is a big part of our coaching model. It's like, we assert ourselves as the guide. We provide advice, we share experiences, and we kind of hold a mirror up to you and show you the person that you are representing through your actions. And ultimately, you're going to determine if your actions align with who you truly are.
Right.
And if we can use training and nutrition to figure out who people are at the core, that's pretty fucking powerful.
So you probably do you talk a lot about identity shift and stuff? Because that's what I've been leaning into way more with, I did it last night with, it's coming up so much. And it's like anything, like when you start to see things a certain way, even as a coach, you start to be like, oh, damn, like, I think I can utilize this a lot more right now. And I'm seeing it with a lot of like behavior change challenges with clients where I'm like, hey, if we're struggling with, going off what we were saying before, it's like, if we're struggling with choice, what I've been directing people towards, which sometimes helps them. It depends on the person, kind of how they think. Sometimes it can kind of rattle them a bit. But I'm like, here's what I need you to do. You already have a picture in your head. Like when you hired me, you had a picture in your head of the person and their life that you envisioned that was successful. Like you probably had that. It might not be super clear, but you have an emotion of what that is. What we need to do is let's get more clear about what that is. So like how does that person look? How do they feel? How do they talk? Who do they hang out with? What words do they use? What words do they not use? When do they go to bed? What do they eat? What movies do they watch? Do they watch TV at all? Do they watch the news? Do they not? What type of news do they watch? Like what clothes do they wear? Do they like clothes at all? Like these things all matter because if you can get really clear on that, then all I need you to do right now is not become that person. I actually need you to pretend you're already them. Like just role play, just act. And it's going to feel clunky. It's going to feel weird. But if you just start pretending you're that person, all of a sudden you do become that person. So instead of looking at like, I need to, version one of me needs to become that person. I know that's technically true. I need you to look at it like you already are that person,
It's just a
you know?
reframe.
Yeah.
I think where you and I come to this honestly because we've been through so many identity shifts in our own life.
Yeah.
Right. You've shared your story, from start to finish and how
Yeah.
you've gone through these different versions of yourself. And I've done the same,
Yeah.
personally. I don't share as much as you.
Yeah.
I'm feeling called to share a lot more, to be honest.
Cool.
I'm still TBD on how that's
Yeah.
going to look, but,
Yeah.
you know, going from collegiate strength coach, quitting coaching, starting
Yeah.
a business, working private sector, competing at the highest level in powerlifting, then completely giving it up, and now focusing on business and personal development and all these other things. My clients are coming to me with life problems in a lot of
Right.
instances because
Yeah.
I'm very, very vulnerable in my conversations with clients to share my experiences
Hmm.
because I recognize when they're going through those same shifts I went through. So if
Right.
I can walk them through that because I've walked through that path.
Yeah.
One of my clients and I had a conversation yesterday. This guy makes, 7+ figures a year.
Okay.
Very, very successful doctor, but his identity is more aligned with being a present father and partner. And he is noticing that as his child gets older and he wants to spend more time with his child, he's not able to live within those value systems because he's being pulled professionally. And so he has the option to change, not necessarily quit his job, but move to a different role within his organization.
Hmm.
But it's a $500,000 pay cut, which is a lot of money.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I told him, I was like, listen, I've never been in a position where I had to make a $500,000 decision.
Mm.
But you have to look at this as, who do you want to be? Do you want to be known? Like, and I do talk about death a lot because I think it's a great way to calibrate. If you were on your deathbed, would you wish for more time with your kid or more time working? He's like, I'd wish for more time with my kid. And in his situation, they paid off their house, they paid off their car, they paid off their debts. They're heavily invested. Like they're fine. So is the $500,000 pay cut really worth the misalignment with who you truly want to be? And I don't know if you run into this, and I actually run into this a lot. You get clients who come to you with problems that can't be solved today.
Right.
Okay. So this is something that I have thought a lot about, especially over the last couple of weeks. So it's really front of mind. So in this instance, this gentleman can't change his role for about 6 months. And I said, listen, you can't do anything for 6 months. So why are you even thinking about it?
Hmm.
Just put it off.
Right.
Set a reminder in your phone for the date that you're going to start thinking about it again.
Yeah.
And until then, you live your best life.
Yeah. Right.
I do this a lot because I've got a lot of projects on the go and I'm
Hmm.
pulled in a lot of different directions. So I set deadlines. I'm like, okay, I need to start thinking about this today, but until then, not going to touch it. And
That's huge.
it helps me. It helps
Yeah.
me like keep everything siloed
Yeah.
and compartmentalized to some degree.
Yeah.
And for my own productivity and my own mental health, like I'm not anxious about anything because I know I'm going to get to it when I get to it.
Hmm.
And we can do the same thing with our clients. And these
Yeah.
are all tools. Not every tool is going to work for every person.
Hmm.
But when you go through life and you experience different versions of yourself, you develop this really robust toolbox because you have such a unique array of experiences and you've navigated successfully through it. And that's why you're here today doing what you do. So you're just kind of helping other people do the same thing.
Yeah, just the vehicle is fitness.
Yep, exactly.
Yeah, the example that I could think of that I think is similar to what you're saying is clients when they are. I will typically. I've changed my opinion on this actually quite a bit in recent years. I'm typically a lot more aggressive in like fat loss phases than I used to be
Okay.
with clients, and so when I do that, one of the trade-offs as a coach is I will get clients being like, "Hey, this isn't sustainable," and then I go, "Yeah, no, it's not meant to be.
Hmm.
Um, we're gonna develop some sustainable tools along the way, but this thing we're doing is not sustainable. If it was, that means you go down to 0 pounds and die, right? So no, this isn't meant to be sustainable. This phase ends, and I have the dates. Here it is, right? I
Yep.
need you. So it's kind of what you're saying, where
Yep.
they're thinking. It's good to think long term, but sometimes you think too long term, and they're thinking, "How do I hold?" You don't even need to worry about that. Let's just get to the target we want. Then we shift the goalpost to the new problem. But until then, I don't need you to think about the next problem.
Yep. That's
You know?
exactly it.
Yeah.
I used to be, I go back and forth on this, like the fat loss question,
Yeah.
because in general, I'd like to do things slow.
Sure.
Mostly because you run into less problems with adherence.
Right.
But there is a lot to be said for somebody who is super oriented to have an end date. Because if they're
Right.
like, I can lock in for 3 months, I'm
Right.
like, cool, let's lock in for 3 months. Let's be super aggressive.
Yep.
The majority of the clients that I train maybe have to go through one or two of those.
Okay.
But then thereafter, I'm really big on high flux. So like high food, high energy expenditure.
Right. Yep.
And we try to eat at maintenance for the majority of the year
That's awesome. Yeah.
and just drive training adaptations.
Yeah.
And what ends up happening is, and I've seen it time and time and time again, we baseline step count every day, baseline cardio every week, and
Yeah.
then we just drive as much training stimulus as we can.
Hmm.
I've got people that have increased their maintenance calories by over 1,000 calories. You
I
know,
believe it. Yep.
I have
Yep.
one of my guys, he came to me at 270 pounds, eating
Hmm.
like 2,700 calories.
Hmm.
And he was like pretty good body composition at 270.
Yep.
He's now 270 with abs, and his maintenance calories is 4,100.
Yeah.
I'm like, first of all, that's badass.
Yeah. It's gangster.
Second of all, you're 270 with abs, bro.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
that's sick. And these like that's not the typical results, but yeah, you can drive like as soon as you start driving that nutrient turnover with the high flux,
Hmm.
it's a minimum 400 or 500 calorie increase over time. And we're
Yeah.
talking like a year, 2 years.
Hmm.
I've been coaching that client for almost 3 years now.
Yep.
And these are the types of things you get to do when you have high retention rates as a coach.
Hmm.
And we can get into that as well, because I think the current model for most coaches is churn and burn. You're not making any changes in that person's life.
Right. Yeah.
I
Because you don't
think
have time.
you don't have the time.
Yeah.
They're not invested. You're not invested.
Hmm.
And, if you're always trying to market your services and acquire new clients, maybe you should try just not losing them, and then you wouldn't have to work as hard.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are. I think a lot of people just don't know how to do that.
No, they don't.
Do
They
you know
don't
what I
know how
mean?
to
Like,
be
I don't
good
think
coaches.
they're willingly, and I'm not saying you're implying this either, but I don't think it's a malicious thing or even a willful, unethical thing. Although certainly it is probably.
I
But
don't think
I
so
think a
either.
lot of people, they literally have no idea how to do that. It's like, okay, I would love it if I never lost a client again. And they're like, how do I do that? And most people, especially men, are going to be very embarrassed to say those words I just said.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? To be like, I can't, my churn's 80%. like how do I keep a client around? And then they probably know the answer maybe. And then to ask that out loud to a mentor or a friend means they're going to say, hey, you need to improve your technical skills as a coach. And they go, oh, my ego, dude, that hurts. Like, I don't want to hear that.
I don't even,
I don't want to hear that.
so like, I don't even think it's their technical skills. Like,
Oh no.
very, very rarely will somebody be limited in their ability to help someone because of X's and O's knowledge.
Mm,
I think it purely relates to what systems do you have in place to engage your clients in the process, and then
mhm.
how good are you at forming relationships with these people?
So more people skill stuff.
More people skills, more
Okay.
communication,
Yeah, yeah.
more psychology, learning
Yeah.
cognitive behavioral therapy, learning motivational interviewing,
Yeah.
implementing these things, and then creating systems that allow you to do that.
Yeah.
this is like the epitome of, I always say, just be a great coach. And then the business takes care of itself.
Right.
Because if you're a great coach, and this is just surface level, and I'm not going to go into it. So like,
Yeah.
if you're a great coach and you have 10 clients and all 10 of those clients love you and can't stop talking about you, and they refer you one friend, you just doubled your revenue.
Right.
And you didn't market a single bit. You didn't even have to be on Instagram. Right. And so I kind of take that to the extreme and I say, okay, how can we systematize this? How can we create an environment that fosters that sort of retention, referrals, and engagement where people just want to come in?
Right.
And there's like the list of things that you could potentially do is very, very long. The things that we do is quite extensive, but it all comes down to engaging people in the process. So getting them involved and participating, and then forming relationships with them that separate them from the transaction. Because at the end of the day, you want your clients to forget that they pay you.
Right.
The majority of the coaches that come to me for mentorship, I ask them what their retention rates are. Like, so what's your average customer lifespan? And they either can't tell me or it's like 3 months.
Okay. Yeah.
And then I say, okay, if you have to get new client, if you have to recycle your client base every 3 months, you're spending all of your time on marketing, and then you only have so much time. So how much time can you actually spend with these people? It's not much. If you looked at a pie chart of time spent serving versus marketing, that pie chart should be like 90% service. But if your churn is really high, that pie chart has to shift. And it's like a self-feeding negative feedback loop. Because if you can't keep the clients, you have to market. If you have to market, you can't keep your clients.
Yeah. Right.
And ultimately, you have to decide what kind of coaching model that you want to have. If you are someone who has a massive Instagram following,
Yeah.
like one of our coaches has 400,000 Instagram followers.
Thanks, babe.
She made one story post that she was starting to work with us.
Yep.
And she had 37 inquiries.
Hell yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So now she's bought into our system and she's bought into our model of coaching, which is very high touch, client centered.
Yeah.
But if she wasn't, and she just decided to go in on her own, she could have a churn and burn type of thing where she just puts people into stock programs or into group coaching, and she can make a lot of revenue on very little time, but she's not going to be making change in people's lives. She's not going to actually be providing a service that people will want to stick around for, and she will have to churn and burn all of her clients. And it's not a malicious thing. It's just that's what she would have access to.
Right. It's just the model. Like you have
It's
to
just the
accept
model.
that's the model. Yeah.
And so for people like you and I, like you think you're around like what, 3,000 followers? Somewhere just shy?
I just hit 4,000
Fuck
yesterday.
yeah, dude. There you go. So 4,000 followers.
Yeah.
I'm just shy of 10K. I'm like 95 or 9,600. That has never once limited my ability to generate revenue.
No, it's funny, dude. I'm hoping that I told Stu this. I'm running follower ads right now.
Okay.
So and it works great. So that's kind of how I generate that following slowly over time and consistently. But at least in the last like 6 months, three to 6 months or whatever. But I kind of secretly want to turn them off because I want to keep it at 4K because I just keep increasing my coaching. Like the business is growing, and I'm like, I don't really want it to grow in tandem with my audience because I don't want that to be a correlation. Like I want to be able to say that I'm like, guys, it doesn't matter. Like it matters to some non-zero amount, but it does not matter nearly as much as you think. Like you know what I'm saying?
No, I totally know what you're saying, and I agree.
Yeah.
And that's one of the reasons why I never have run ads. Like the only ad that I ever ran on Instagram was to that. Like I have a pinned post on my profile that's like basically explaining who my mentorship is for.
Yeah.
It's the only post I've ever done a boost on, and I did it for 2 weeks. But other than that, it's just organic, word of mouth,
Yeah.
referrals, things like that. And I mean, the content that I create, I'm not trying to create top of funnel content because I don't necessarily care to. I don't enjoy that type of content.
Me
Doesn't
neither.
resonate with me. So mine is like middle of funnel, nurture people, provide education, provide, thought experiments, provide tips and tricks, that for me feel aligned.
Yeah. Yeah, dude, that's exactly why I run the follower ads because it took the pressure off. I'm like, dude, I don't want to think about going viral. Like I'm a coach. Like why am I get that we're also
That's
content
totally fair.
creators. That is a hat and I'm like I don't want to think virality. I don't want to think top of funnel. I'm sick of these conversations with other colleagues being like talking about hooks and all these other things. It's like, dude, I don't care. I don't care. I want to provide like genuine content that's easy for me to make and feels authentic. And if I do that, content all of a sudden is easy. Like if I don't know if you have this conversation with some of your mentees, but if they're like, dude, it's like it's so hard to post every day. It's so hard. I'm like, content's so easy. If you're posting, in my opinion, if you're posting middle or bottom of funnel stuff that you love to riff on. That's it. Like that's so easy for me to do. I can do that all day. I was doing 3 posts a day for a while. It was easy. It was so easy, and that's marketing, I guess. But it's like it was so easy because I didn't have to worry about any of those hitting the algo. They get 500 to 1,000 views, and I get people responding, being like, "Whoa, this hit, this resonated." I'm like, that's what matters. Like someone already in my audience, it actually resonates from that. I don't need that thing to hit 10K views. I don't care.
My favorite example of this was I used to post clips from my group mentorship calls, and it was just like a screen full of squares and heads, right?
Like Zoom.
Like Zoom. Yeah, it
Yeah,
would
yeah,
just screen capture a Zoom call,
yeah.
put it in a reel. And there was one reel that got 300 views and 15 likes.
Yeah.
You know how many dollars I made off of that single reel?
Tell me. I love it.
$22,500.
Yeah. I believe it.
I had 3 people sign up for the mentorship based on the content that I discussed in that snippet.
Yep.
The people who see your content are the ones you're trying to talk to. Because if you think about it at the bare bones, Instagram will share your content first to people who keep track of you the most.
Right.
And so if your post isn't getting a lot of views, that just means it's not getting a lot of views outside of those people.
Right.
How many times, so if you have a post that got 1,000 views, how many times have you been in a room speaking to 1,000 people?
Right. Yeah, none.
None.
Yeah.
You know, I think the most people I've had was when I presented at Swiss, and I think I had 110.
Right.
And so if you think about it like that, if you do an IG live and you get 13 people attend, it's like that's 13 people who actually gave a shit about what you had to say.
Yeah. Yeah, that's I think that's the right way to look at it, dude, cuz like it's like I don't need, you hit the algo which everyone starts to get stuck in and then you end up just like being a slave to 7-second reels just so you can get however many views. And it's like I don't care. Like the only reason I would run DM follower ads to take the pressure off that so I can create content that actually helps and nurtures. That's it, right? And so it slowly builds up my audience so that I have more of a pool to help. That's literally it. Like that's the ecosystem that I'm creating, right? And then I don't need to think about like, oh, okay, well I did a nurture post, then a bottom of funnel, then okay, so I need to hit a top of funnel viral. So what kind of dancing monkey bullshit am I going to do today? It's like I don't even have to think about that. I can post these 3-minute reels that are totally against all the rules that they would tell you to do. And like they crush because the way I define as crushing is like someone reaches out and now I'm
Yeah.
in a conversation and I can send them more resources and I'm helping them.
So your definition of a crush, like a successful
Yeah.
content or piece of content or post or blog or
Yeah.
podcast, whatever, is how many actual conversations are you having as a result of that piece of content?
Yeah, exactly.
Which
Yeah.
ultimately is the only thing that fucking matters.
Yeah. Yeah.
If I get I've posted, Liv and I will do these collabs because for our supplement sponsorship.
Yeah.
And they're a lot of fun to make. I like making content with
Right.
my wife because
Yeah.
they're just silly.
It's silly goose stuff.
It's silly goose stuff. We had one that got like 35,000 likes,
Uh-huh.
0 conversations about coaching.
Right. So you're like, okay, I got visibility, so maybe down the road I get something, but like
Maybe.
even then, yeah, maybe. Yeah.
So, and that for me is like, it's not worth it.
Right.
Like to put my energy into creating my own posts to try and go viral like that,
Right.
it's just not worth it. It's also, I don't find it interesting. But
Right.
then I'll speak to other coaches who that's totally within their personality. Like,
Yes.
I'm not sure if you follow him, John Heck, Big
No, I
John.
know who you're talking about though. I've seen you post about him and yeah. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So John's like 6'7",
Yeah.
320 pounds with abs. Like he's freaking nature.
Oh, I've
And he's
seen
all
some of his posts about the steroid thing.
yeah.
Like those are hilarious.
So, but that's his personality. Like we
Yeah.
hung out and trained
Yeah.
2 weeks ago, and it was
Okay.
just like jokes the whole time.
Yeah.
And so he just puts his personality on Instagram, and that's what helps him.
That's
Obviously,
the
he's
move.
got the freak factor,
Yep.
but the move is, well, I enjoy making this kind of silly goose content, so I'm going to do
Yes.
it.
Yeah.
I don't.
Yeah.
So why am I going to force myself to do shit I don't want to do?
Yeah, that's the problem, dude. I think like it's like there's so many ways to skin a cat, and in the world of content creation in regards to fitness coaches, I see it like really mess with people, and I've been through that too, where you start to like 90% of my day is now spent. How do I get more eyeballs, more visibility, more whatever? And I'm like, this like I get that I need to do that. I like marketing. I like the game, right? But that specific hat is like super annoying when you're like, I'm still a coach, dude. Like I'm trying to help people get in shape here, you know? And that's how I'm trying to change their lives. So if I can like develop a machine, a marketing machine that feels like it's in alignment with me, that's easy, fun, and enjoyable and authentic, like that's way easier to be sustainable on that than like, okay, well, what what read caption be, I don't know, I'm just making shit up, and I've done all those posts, but it's like which one am I going to force myself into, as opposed to like take a template or an idea and then make it fit my personality.
If you had to do something you didn't enjoy doing for the rest of your life, do you think that would be sustainable?
Yeah, no.
And like one of the things that I will ask my mentees a lot is this something that you could see yourself doing for the rest of your life? The answer in most cases for stuff like that is no.
Hmm.
And ultimately, I want to be a coach for the rest of my life. I know that the avatar of who I'm coaching will change. I know that my interests will change. I know that the coaches I work with will change. I know that the industry will change. But at the end of the day, I'm a coach. Even like mentorship stuff, I'm coaching people in business and I'm coaching people in the things that they're doing. I just want to coach.
Right.
I've said this, if I didn't have an online business, I would not have Instagram.
Right.
I don't care to have it. I find it's distracting. And ultimately, I just want to help people. But Instagram is a vehicle for me to appeal to people so that I can help.
Right.
So it's a tool. And now if I'm like, okay, it's a tool, what tool, like how do I use this tool to build the thing I want to build?
Hmm.
Just because you have tools in your toolbox doesn't mean you have to use them.
Right.
You know, like I'm a gun guy now. Okay. So
Hell yeah. Hell yeah, you are.
we're gonna put this into perspective.
God bless America.
I have a beautiful shotgun. I'm not gonna carry that in my pocket down the street. That's not what that tool is for. I have, I just bought a race gun. I'm like, I'm not gonna put that on my bedside because that's not what it's for. And so if I have this tool of social media and the goal of my social media is to create conversations with people that lead to me selling them coaching, I'm going to use the tool that allows me to do that. And that is my superpowers, right? You have your superpowers. I have my superpowers. Liv has her superpowers. Mm-hmm. Liv is fucking phenomenal at relating to women and understanding the problems that they face and how to navigate them. She does a great job of getting women to raise their hand. That's her superpower. My superpower is getting people to look themselves in the mirror and ask hard questions. It's not giving people answers, but giving them better questions to ask. That's my superpower. That is not virality. That is not entertainment.
Right.
Why would I try to do something that I'm not interested in, resonates with me, I don't enjoy, and also doesn't showcase what actually people come to me for?
Hmm.
It just doesn't make sense.
Well, and I think ultimately, like, I think the best marketing plan is going to be the one where it just showcases your philosophy, maybe some of your personality. Like, we're good examples you previously mentioned where it's like I share more of that right now. And probably most people are going to share some non-zero amount of their personal life. So it's just deciding how much you want to do that. But regardless, it's like you just shared like coaching philosophy, lifestyle, personality, whatever. And it's like I'm a big believer now that it's like if you just share that and you document kind of some of the stuff going on there, naturally that's going to be the best way for people to buy into your shit than it is being like, here's my 3 tips to X, Y, and Z.
I totally agree.
You know?
One thing that I do struggle with is I love being in the moment because previously in my life I very much struggled to be in the moment.
Yeah.
I was physically present but cognitively somewhere else or
Yeah.
emotionally somewhere else. So
Yeah.
finding points of my day where I'm perfectly centered and present is something that I've worked very hard on. So whenever I talk to somebody who's in the marketing space or social media, whatever, they're like, you need to document your life. I want to live my life. And I in the past I've made the excuse of, well, my life is boring. I sit at my desk all day.
Yes.
My
Yeah.
life isn't boring,
Yeah.
you know? And my life isn't boring. It's actually very full and exciting and fulfilling, and I love it. But I want to live it.
Right.
So the pulling out my phone to film, that's just not natural for me. Even in the gym lately, I'm just training, man.
Right.
I'll post a training session once a month, maybe.
Hmm.
But better believe it, I'm in there 5 days a week crushing.
Yeah, the I don't find I honestly don't find it hard to do that stuff, like pull out my phone and just take a photo or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But I know what you're saying. The What I find hard is, you know, when you've ever done a vlog or something where you're like, oh, I'm
Yes.
documenting a whole day.
Yeah.
Those are fucking
Yeah, they're
brutal.
tough.
And I'm gonna do more. I'm gonna do more. I might not do them forever, but I'm gonna do more because I should, and I think it'll help, and I think I can get better at it. But I do not enjoy that. I'll say that right now. So I'll see how long I stick around with doing those types of things. But I do want to refine that skill a little bit before I give up on it. But man, that's annoying when I'm like when I was in
We've
Barbados with my family in February or January, whenever it was, and I vlogged it. And the way that I did it, because I'd hated vlogging up until that point, I was like, I need to vlog this one. But I was like, how am I going to do it? So what I did was, out of 7 day period, is I was like, I'm going to vlog this day, this day, this day, and this day. All the other days, camera goes away. And like that was way easier because the problem that I was having is like I'm constantly having to think like, oh, I need to connect the dots there. Oh, I need to have a shot there. Oh, I need to have a transition shot there. I need to like you're constantly thinking about that, which pulls you out of the moment. And it's better if I have that gear for one day where it's like, cool, this day I'm not in the moment the whole day, whatever. Like I just go into one gear and then I can turn it off for the next day, as opposed to the whole trip kind of being in and out of like back into the moment, back out, back in, back out throughout the days. I'm like, dude, that drives me insane because I can easily just pull up my phone and do that. I find that relatively easy for whatever reason. Just pull up my phone, snap a photo. Oh, that's a cool video. Okay, phone goes away. Wow, awesome scene. I can just hang out now for an hour without my phone. But
yeah, I don't have the skill to do that and it not pull me away.
yeah, gotcha.
So whenever we're on vacation or something like that,
Yeah.
I keep my phone in my pocket, or I sometimes I'll even leave it in the room, and Liv takes all the pictures, and then she sends me a shared folder afterwards.
Yeah, that's smart.
Because she's really good at it. Like
Yeah.
she can have her phone and not be distracted by it. I'm
Yeah.
constantly like pulled into it.
Yep. Yep. Gotcha.
But again, these are lessons learned and challenges that we face. And I think that we both agree that challenges are not locked doors, right?
No.
It's not a wall.
No.
And if it is a wall, well, then you build a door, or you climb over the wall, or you walk
Right.
around the wall, or you find a solution. So when I'm saying that, like, hey, I have trouble doing this, that's me admitting that there is a challenge that I need to face head on and that I need to look for a solution to. and I don't get paralyzed by it, I either figure out a solution or I say, well, this probably isn't for me. And then I move on and do something different.
Mm.
That type of mindset in business is something that's so valuable. And in anything, like whether we're talking about coaching clients or coaching coaches, having a solutions oriented mindset where you look at things as opportunities to solve problems versus I call these so there are solution finders where people will find solutions for every problem, but there are also problem finders where people find problems for every solution. And like, yeah, I'm thinking of a client right now who she lives a very challenging life. She's a pilot and she does long day trips and the odd overnight. So she's flying all day. She can't eat while she's flying, and then the stoppages in between flights, she can't like run out and do stuff and come back. She's got to take care of the plane. And we were talking about I provided a list of solutions that she could have. And ultimately, all of them have trade-offs, whether it be you have to eat your food cold or you have to bring a cooler and every single solution was, oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't do that. Oh, I can't do that. And you have to break that. Be like, listen,
Right.
it comes back to the beginning of our conversation, the illusion of choice.
Yeah.
If you want the thing, you have to do the stuff.
Hmm.
You can't have the thing without the stuff.
Yes. Yes. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and it's like sometimes I think we probably all do it in our own versions, maybe, but some more than others, where, yeah, you create this idea in your head of like what you're searching for, where you're like, this solution will be easy. And people won't consciously, I think that, but subconsciously kind of assume that. Like even the classic coaching example, right, is someone hiring, you or I, and they have a body composition goal. So it's like, okay, nutrition is going to be play a big role here, and you're like, okay, I know what foods you like to eat. You gave me a lot of information around this, so I know what'll work here. I've figured out the portions and the macros and everything we need here. We can talk about timing and all that stuff after. And then they go, I don't want to eat that. I don't want to eat that. And you're like, well, that wasn't on your list of things you didn't really like. So now we're talking about small preference changes. And it's like, okay, we can work with you on that. But there's like an interesting like dance you have to play there, because then you go, as a coach, I think you have to challenge those, because you have to go, you know what? I can change that for you, but I think I'm doing you a disservice if I do. I think you need to do this because you're falling into this trap of like, what's the easiest way? And you know what's a similar scenario is when people go, I will have, so part of like my coaching is I will have like, my default for most people that run through like front end part of my program will be like, I'll give them 2 free meals each week. Okay. So 2 free meals for them to practice some intuitive eating skills that I coach them through. And most people are not very good at that. And most people are really good at following a plan. Not everyone, but most people are really good at being like, cool, I can follow that. When they don't have that to follow, they're like, this is scary. And so we're trying to flex that muscle, trying to get good at that. But a lot of times people will be like, hey, so I have this coming up tomorrow. I'm like, cool, let me coach you through it. Let's talk. Right. And then they go, can I have like a cinnamon roll and then like no bread at dinner, but maybe a piece? And then so what they end up doing is they're kind of negotiating with themselves and they're trying to see what they can get away with. And so what I do is I end up reframing it with them where I'm like, hey, I think you're looking at this as how much can I get away with and still get results, as opposed to what do I need to do to get results? And why don't I go past that? Like, why am I looking for the bare minimum? The example that I use when I talk to clients like this is I'm like, when I played football, actually, this is when I was coaching. So this is actually when I was done playing football, I was coaching, and I remember the head coaches saying this, and it was good, where a lot of we were coaching like 13, 14-year-olds, and we'd be playing an away game, and you got the home field refs that may not treat you as favorably, and we'd go for a first down, and looks like a first down, maybe not super obvious, but looks like a first down. And then they place the ball and they're saying it's 3rd and inches or whatever. And we'd all erupt and be like, what the, blah, 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 whatever. And then go complain to the head coach. All the players would, right? And they'd be like, dude, just whine. They just complain. And the head coach would be like, it's your fault. You should have made it obvious. Why are you doing the bare minimum? If you wanted a first down, Go 10 yards past the first down marker, not an inch past. Because that's not the ref's fault. That's your fault. You should have made it obvious. So it's like kind of the same thing that I'm trying to get them to think of is like,
Yep.
okay, if I need to hit 10,000 steps a day based on my plan and whatever I need to do, just as an example, it's like, okay, well, I need to hit 10,000 steps a day. That's simple. Can I get the same result hitting the odd 8,000? Maybe, but that doesn't help us thinking through that lens. We need to hit 10K. Can we get more? Well, maybe I should ask my coach if more helps. And if so, cool. I'm going to aim for that.
Yeah, and that also allows you as the coach to coach the flexibility piece of it.
Right.
So I like to deal a lot with averages, and I like to deal a lot with totals, like weekly totals. So
Right.
Rarely anymore will I prescribe 30 minutes of cardio a day. Like, unless you're prepping for a bodybuilding show and we need like the utmost control over the scenario, you have 210 minutes of cardio. So guess what? If you were a silly goose and you waited until the day before your check-in to get your cardio in, you're spending 210 minutes on the cardio.
Right.
It's a non-negotiable that you do the cardio. But you can choose when you do it. Or your average step count for the week has to be 10K. So if you have like 4 20,000 step days and then a couple 5,000 step days, well, guess what? You still hit your 10K average.
Right.
We're good. We checked the box.
Yeah.
And that allows people to learn a little bit about their psychology and realize that they're procrastinating, and it gives you a lot of like, I like to program in a way that gives me opportunities to coach. So I kind of set them up to reveal elements of their personality or reveal some of the limiting beliefs or, reveal some of their shortcomings so that we can work on those.
So like not giving them meal times, for example, being like, here's what you got to eat. And then they come to you and go, hey, I'm like really hungry here. And it's like, yeah, you should have planned ahead. I figured you'd do this. Here's what we're going to do.
Exactly. And I also don't think that shit matters to a large degree.
Right.
And you can boil this down going back to evidence, right? So we want to be evidence-based coaches, right? We want to wear an evidence-based hat and spew off about science. The deeper you look at science, the more you will realize that the minutia doesn't matter. So even when it comes to meal frequency, the same calories and protein equated over a 24-hour period, the same results in body weight change. Extrapolate that to the week. So if you're fasting for 24 hours, that means you only have 6 days to get in calories. Well, if you eat the same calories in those 6 days that you otherwise would have in 7, you'll have the same net body weight changes, thermodynamics. That's why I don't care if they do 210 minutes of cardio in one day and then fuck off for the rest of the week, because it's still the same net caloric expenditure for those 7 days.
Right.
So I call it like my zoom in, zoom out lens. It's like, there's instances where I need to zoom in and get really granular. There's instances where we need to zoom out and look at the big picture. Ultimately, if you check off the things you need to do every day, well, then you're in a great place. But sometimes stuff happens and you can't check off all the boxes on a single day because there are elements outside your control. So let's zoom out in that instance and just make up for it. I do this all the time where, I have a meal plan for my coach because I'm prepping for a show. Today's a great example. I had to train at 6 a.m. I can't eat in the morning. Like, I can't eat a full meal in the morning and feel okay to go train right away.
Right. Me too.
So what did I do? I made my meal 1. I ate half of it before my workout and half of it after. I still ate meal 1.
Right.
Or, meal 3 is supposed to have an apple. Sometimes I eat that apple with meal 5.
Right.
It's like, does that shit matter? I think back to the first time I ever dieted. I was working full time for a company and ever dieted to get super lean. I was working full time in the private sector for an insurance company, and I was coaching full time. So I had 80 clients and a full time job. Okay. Workload was through the roof. My strategy to get my food in was to mix all of my food and calories for the day in a big bowl and just make sure by the end of the day, the bowl was done.
I love that. Simple.
Dude, it worked great. Yeah. Over the course of, 12 weeks, the bowl got smaller. The spoons got smaller.
Yeah.
but I still had my, 800 to 1,000 grams of vegetables. I had my 250 grams of protein. I had my varying amount of carbohydrates. I had a couple pieces of fruit here and there.
Yeah.
So like food variety was there. Macronutrients, micronutrients were there. I just happened to eat out of a trough.
Yep.
Like a cow.
Dude, suboptimal is optimal when you extrapolate farther out.
Oh, dude, the word optimal fucking irks me so bad, and I've been swearing, and I'm sorry if you're not allowed to swear, but optimal doesn't mean perfect.
Right.
The internet would have you believe that optimal means perfect. Optimal does not mean perfect. Perfect means perfect. Optimal means you're doing the best you can with what you have where you're at.
Right.
So optimal for me is not optimal for my client who's a pilot. Mm-hmm. What's optimal for her is going to be different from my client who's a single mom who, works from home, right? Optimal is individual. And say like, oh, this is the optimal resistance profile for this movement. Does that mean that if I don't have that machine or that band or this setup or my shoulder hurts, that I'm getting zero gains from doing something else? No, it doesn't. And the more we talk about optimal and conflate it with perfect, we just continue to raise the barrier of entry for people to get into fitness and see results. The number one goal of us as coaches is to lower the barrier of entry for people to get the best results possible. Right. And that means being flexible. That means teaching them about options. That means teaching them about, putting different tools in their toolbox, getting them out of their own way, and ultimately unlearning so much of the crap that they're coming to us with. Because that's a bit of a rant, but I think more than ever, our clients are coming to us with more knowledge than they've ever had in the past.
I agree.
Most of the clients that you're going to get, whether you, myself, or any of the coaches that are watching, or any of the people that are watching, they've probably worked with another coach before. They've probably followed another program. They've probably tried meal plans or tried named diets before. Very rarely are you going to get someone who's green, never been to the gym, So part of that is validating their experience as being a useful exploration of things that work and don't work for them. But the other part is challenging those beliefs and showing them alternatives, which lowers the barrier of entry and makes it a lot easier for them to start seeing results faster.
Yeah, it's less overwhelming if you're early, if you're green, and then if you're not green, like what you're saying, like you're early intermediate, for lack of a better term, just to define where they're at. I think it keeps a lot of people average. Because you end up in this weird little circle jerk ecosystem of just like not getting better, but constantly. I'm actually a huge culprit of this, of knowledge consumption hitting my dopamine, right, and then feeling like I'm doing something. So that I did that forever with fitness, and then I did it with business, and I've grown past in both areas in that regard, which I'm thankful for, because I was able to identify that where I'm like, oh man, I am I am going nowhere but doing a lot. And it was knowledge consumption. It was like more information, because eventually I'll get the one that actually helps. And it's like, bro, you have enough knowledge to do whatever you want. You have horrible application, So it's like, it was then extrapolating now, taking that and just putting it into application, messy application. That was like, suboptimal on paper, but actually by your definition, and I would agree, like actually was optimal. Yeah.
I think a lot of people want to learn, they want to have more knowledge, but they lack I'll put it to you this way. I have 2 master's degrees. Okay. So I learned a lot in school. Very little of what I learned in school do I use on a daily basis. What I do use is critical thinking. Mm-hmm. So I've developed a very refined lens for bullshit. And I've developed a very fine lens for identifying what's useful and what's not.
Yeah.
I think most people take in all this information and layer it on top of itself instead of kind of filing it in order and then throwing out what's useless.
Right.
So it's like a vertical integration of knowledge versus a horizontal integration of knowledge. I look at I use the toolbox analogy a lot because if you look at a really good mechanic, their toolbox is really organized. They know exactly where all their wrenches are, their screwdrivers, all that stuff. And that's the way I want to look at my knowledge base. And I still actively seek continuing education all the time. Like right now, my goal is to learn as much as I can about functional nutrition, gut health, hormones, blood work, things like that. Because I'm seeing more and more issues with my clients in that regard. So I've identified a gap in my knowledge base that addresses a need in my client base.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm going to attack that as much as I can. There's a lot of stuff that I've learned in the functional health space that, in my opinion, is dog shit and useless because it's just not applicable.
Right.
In that space, it's very like protocol focused and supplement heavy. I refuse out of my ethics to ask someone to buy $500 worth of supplements a month. I think that's asinine, especially when they're paying me $500 a month.
Right.
So then the question is, what's the solution here? Well, the solution is I need to learn more about food as medicine,
Mm-hmm.
which again, you go through this and you look at it through the lens and you get more and more and more granular into what am I actually looking for? There's parallels across the board. So if you as a client are searching for a guide to help you navigate a certain situation, choose a guide who's actually navigated that situation for themselves and others. Don't go to the person that's most popular, or don't go to the person that maybe seems like they know what they're doing. Look at that through a lens. If you're interviewing coaches, ask for references, right? Hey, can I reach out to two of your clients and ask them? They're going to send you their best clients,
Mm-hmm.
but at least you'll be able to talk to people who work with them and you'll be able to make an educated decision on, is this coaching style right for me?
Right.
I think people jump into coaching too fast, and I've actually enjoyed the last few mentees that I've onboarded have asked me for references.
Mm.
I'm like, yeah, absolutely. Here's 5 people. Go talk to them.
Yeah.
I'll send an email to all of them. Be like, hey, you should hear from this person. They're interested in mentorship. If you could talk to them, that'd be great. Thanks.
Right.
And they're, again, because service quality is really high, they're more than happy to share, their experiences with me. And there have been instances where I'll get an email back from one of my mentees being like, I don't think this is a good fit for you.
Mm-hmm.
Great. Saved me a whole lot of headache. Because as a coach, if you're taking on, like, this is another thing as a coach, you shouldn't take everyone who inquires with you.
Mm-hmm.
Like, there are just people who are not going to be a good fit.
Mm-hmm.
I do not want to work with somebody who, I get this a lot in powerlifting of like the dude who wants to take a shit ton of drugs. Not me. It's not
Right.
it's not what I'm interested in.
Yeah.
I'll get the person who wants to compete in bodybuilding and wants to get all the results all at once. That's
Right.
not my style.
Right.
I want the type of client who's going to ask me a lot of questions and learn through the process and be engaged and actually like take all the value that I can provide. I don't like clients who just follow the plan and check in with me. Good. Those are easy, but they don't light my fire.
Right. Because not as fulfilling or rewarding.
And I also know that for a fact that I do not get along well with clients who are not willing to face their shortcomings.
Right. Right. Yeah. Yeah.
Because I say this all the time, I'm a professional devil's advocate.
Right.
And I'm going to challenge every single one of your beliefs.
Right.
I'm not going to challenge your values, but I'll challenge your beliefs. And that's hard. That's hard
Yeah.
for people.
Yep. Yep. Especially in the world of changing your body, like training for sure, but like anything around body composition, changing your body, man, it's like that is so interwoven
Yeah.
with people. Like it's crazy how much you have to do that.
Well, I joke that anytime you want to see who someone really is and see what their true psychology is, take away their food.
Hey, dude, it's so true.
Make someone really hungry and
Yeah.
see how resilient they are to stress.
Yeah. 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 And that's like, there's like a flip side there too, where I think, a lot of people, I think, diet too much.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't diet enough, for sure. Culturally, we probably don't. Well, culturally, we diet too much and don't lose enough weight. So both,
Yes.
that's the problem.
Yeah.
But most people, I think, diet too much. And so, interestingly enough, this is kind of me just speculating. I wonder if because people do it too much, forget about the physiological and
Yeah.
other psychological effects that are trade-offs and costs associated with that. But I think they're constantly reminded of those aspects of them too frequently. That can be exhausting. Like even with the last fat loss phase that I did, that's the hardest one I've done because I haven't done a show, right? So I'm like, to me that was insane. I was like, this was an awesome experience, like
Right.
so valuable, very fulfilling and rewarding, legitimately challenging. And any diet I'd done to the past was not hard ever because I never got that lean, right? So I was like, well, I need to push. But I felt the hedonistic search for dopamine constantly in the last 2+ weeks of that experience, and I was like, oh, and to the point where like I'm very self-forgiving, like I'm a lot less self-critical than I used to be as a person. So I found it very interesting that I even naturally started to kind of, I guess, judge myself a little bit if I'm being honest. Like feels weird to say because I'm not very self-judgmental anymore. But I kind of was. I kind of was like, I feel like a piece of shit. Like, I feel like I'm kind of searching for just feel good chemicals all day here. And I'm like, yeah, this makes sense. Like, and if you do this a little too often, you might start to get into a weird thing where that is kind of who you are. And it's like, it's not really now. Like, if you get that lean and you're getting probably sub 15% for dudes, you might start to expose those parts about you. And that's healthy, like what you're saying. It's like, that's probably good to, I think everyone should go there. But if you do it a little too often, you might start to think that is who you are. You know what I'm saying? It's like you're not actually this weird person that needs a snack every 2 hours or needs a diet pop every 90 minutes.
Yeah.
I don't know if that makes sense, but
It does make sense. I look at it as like an opportunity. If you're exposing yourself
yeah,
to, let's say, your basest feelings,
yeah,
because that's ultimately what you're doing. Like you're getting to a point where you're trying to survive.
yes,
And so if I'm trying to survive, I'm going to be searching for dopamine. I'm going to be doing all those things. You have to have the ability to do like a post hoc analysis of how did I feel about this? How did I behave?
hmm,
Is this aligned with me? And then the idea is that you use those lessons to make the next one easier.
right,
You said this, no diet I ever did before was hard. It's right, because the hardest thing you've ever done is the hardest thing you've ever done.
right,
I tore my quads 11 months ago. I can firmly say that was really hard, but it wasn't the hardest thing I've ever done.
hmm,
Which made that experience way easier to navigate physically,
hmm,
but also way easier to navigate emotionally because I had the previous experience to leverage my self analysis along the way.
right,
So I agree with you. I think everyone should diet to a point where they're like dick skin shredded. I
hmm,
think there's so many lessons to be learned. But you hear this all the time in the bodybuilding space. It's like, man, I learned so much about myself during this prep. Soon as they start eating, they throw it all out the window and just start doing the dumb shit they did before.
right, right. So you learned a lot, but you didn't actually apply anything.
No, didn't apply anything.
Yeah.
Which means, in my opinion, that you didn't learn shit.
Right. Yeah, yeah, yeah. So then you actually didn't because you're
Yeah.
not able to execute on it.
Yeah. So, um, all that to say, when you expose yourself to manufactured stress, whether through training, through nutrition, through learning a new skill, um, you have to be able to look at that in retrospect
Mhm.
and actually internalize those lessons that you've learned and take those with you for the rest of your life. And as far as the self forgiveness goes, that's a skill in and of itself because you will falter. We all make mistakes. We all have setbacks. There were, it's a great story. So, my first bodybuilding prep, I had dieted to get pretty lean before, but never anywhere inside of like probably 6 to 8 weeks out.
Okay.
So I got to probably 11%,
Okay.
which is very lean.
Yeah.
But 5 weeks out from my first show, I messaged my coach. I said, hey, Liv's competing at nationals and I want to be able to celebrate with her. can I have a free meal? Keep in mind at this point, I had gone 30 weeks without a free meal. So I was locked in 30 weeks. He said, sure, you can have a free meal. Enjoy your meal, have a dessert, be done with it. I proceeded to start dinner with 3 donuts, eat a massive steak dinner, have the other 3 donuts and 6 more of those like kai cookies.
Yeah.
6 of them. Then ate Thanksgiving dinner at Liv's family's house, then had pie.
Dude.
Easily 15,000 calories. Okay. I was so sick to my stomach that I didn't sleep and ended up dry heaving on the toilet most of the night. I still woke up. I still got up. Spent the next 45 minutes on the Stairmaster crying. And then I was so unwell that Liv had to drive home.
Yeah, you just felt actually hungover. Like food hungover. You're like, I'm hungover.
Oh, I was legitimately the most unwell I've ever felt. Like worse than any flu. Anyway.
Yeah.
I messaged my coach afterwards. I'm like, yep, this is what I did.
Yeah.
And his response was, that's okay. I knew you would.
Right.
And if people know me, they know that I respond well to that sort of criticism.
Yeah.
But that required a lot of forgiveness on my part. Like, hey, I fucked up.
Right.
It's okay. I've still got 5 weeks to go. This isn't going to cripple me.
Yeah.
And we're just going to move on. And so I did. And ultimately, unless you seriously injure yourself, just move on.
Yeah.
You know, like, why lament about a mistake when the only way over it is to go through it? Is just let it go and get back on track. You don't have to atone for your sins. You don't have to, do anything special. Just get back to the work. It'll take care of itself in time. And then you'll have learned something in the process and you won't make that mistake in the future. Now I know that if I want to have a free meal, I probably shouldn't have 3 donuts before dinner.
Dude, I think it comes from expectations. A lot of the time.
I would agree.
It's like you're going, it's before. It's like, that's the thing. It's like and not to say how to fix the activity, the behavior, but the post thing you're talking about where it's the self-forgiveness of like, oh man, did I just screw up my show? Should I just quit? I'm the worst bodybuilder ever. I'll never be whatever, like all those crazy beliefs.
To be fair, I was the worst bodybuilder ever before I made that mistake.
You're like, that's actually true, but
yeah.
Yeah, I think it's like it comes down to that. It's like the expectations, because that's what it is. It's like you had an expectation that you probably didn't even identify, like all of us, right? Just you in general, anybody. And then something happens that doesn't align with those expectations, and it's like, oh, I freaking hate this, and like that's where the frustration comes from. Like I've had that for sure, where it's like I had it before I hired coaches, like fitness coaches, business coaches, and I would get frustrated with not making progress when I actually truthfully probably was making progress.
Yeah.
Actually, I was for sure. But it wasn't aligning with my expectations. So I either need to change my expectations or I need to change how I'm going to do things. Right. But it was ultimately a problem with my own expectations of like the beliefs that I had to change, where I should know how to do this. No, I shouldn't. I have no idea. And there's no reason I should know how to do this, but other people do. So I should ask them. They need money. I will pay them for it. Simple. And then the other one is like, it should go a certain way. So if I see someone else's journey, I'm like, mine should look like that too, I think, or I would like it to. And it's like, no, I need to divorce myself from those 2 beliefs. And then it's so much easier.
Yeah. I went on this like quest to live a life free of expectations a while ago. I do ultimately think that mentality serves me. I don't think it serves everybody, but it serves me.
Yeah.
Because it makes me extremely grateful.
Right.
To wake up every morning, and this is the most extreme example I could think of.
Yeah.
I wake up every morning not expecting Liv to love me. But it's a beautiful surprise when she decides to love me every day. And how do I ensure that that becomes a recurring trend in my marriage? Well, I act like a man who she would love, which ultimately is just being myself. So if we find a way to remove expectations from our equation and focus exclusively on process, you're going to be more fulfilled. You're going to be more goal oriented. You're going to be more open to new experiences. And ultimately, I think you'll reach your goals a lot faster.
Yeah, I agree. The becoming way more process oriented and detaching from the outcome as much.
If you have no, so if I set a goal, and I've had so many debates with people about this, but ultimately, if you're setting a goal, all that is a target, right?
Yes.
So
Yes.
I might go to the range and I set my target at whatever distance, and I'm going to fire off rounds. Not all those rounds are going to be bullseyes, but the ones that I miss are more valuable than the ones that I make, because then I can say, oh, my trigger pull was this, my grip was this, my this was that, my sight picture was this, and I can ultimately reverse engineer what success should look like and learn. I don't go to the range expecting to only have one bullet hole in my target after shooting 50 rounds, you know? And I approach powerlifting the same way of like, I know what I want to do at the meet. I'm going to reverse engineer a meet prep that would allow me to hit that goal. But if I don't hit that goal, then I just look at the process and make modifications. It's not a reflection on me as a person whether I achieved the goal or not. It's a reflection on the process I chose to get there. Because I'm a person who does hard things, follows the plan, executes. It's more, the process then becomes an opportunity for you to showcase your identity. I think I said it to you. I think you asked me like what was the thing that I learned the most about my rehab,
Mm-hmm.
and I said that, yeah, when we were at the last Fall Fury, I think it was.
Mm-hmm.
You said, "What'd you learn the most?" And I was like, "I learned who I was. I learned that I am who I am, or who I say I am."
So it gave you a big confidence boost, actually, probably.
Huge,
Right.
but I had no expectations of squatting 135 12 weeks after,
Right.
blowing off both my quads, or
Yeah.
I had no expectations of being able to step on a bodybuilding stage with bigger legs than I had last time I was on, like none of these things were expectations, but they were outcomes of the process that I chose to use.
Right.
And I'll tell you right now, it takes a lot of pressure off you,
Mhm.
and it's way more fun.
Dude, it's way more fun, and it also, it's more fun because this is the worst word to use, but it's easier because the friction is still there, but the friction becomes a positive association as opposed to a purely negative one. Because so it doesn't reduce the friction, but it is easier in the sense of it is more comfortable. Maybe that's probably not even the right word either. But like the way that I would describe it is like what I'll have this conversation with clients a lot of the time, and I use this on myself when I'm kind of talking myself through things, is if I feel like things should be this way, this should happen, that should not have happened, like a lot of should, right? It's usually the word that comes up when there's a misalignment in expectations and reality. And I'll say this to clients, and I'll also coach myself through this, where it's like, if this happened or if this didn't happen, regardless of the scenario we're using, it is exactly what should happen. Like it's actually the opposite of what you're thinking. When you're like that shouldn't happen, it's like, oh, weird, because reality is exactly what should happen. So
Yeah.
you're wrong, and you need to change the way you think about it because you're fighting reality, and that's a bad war to fight. You should bend to reality. I think that's easier, and you should be like almost like absorbing, like, oh, that's happening, cool, I accept that, as opposed to that's happening, I hate it, how do I change it? It's like, sorry, that's reality. That's a hard battle to fight that you'll fight forever. And that's just white knuckling life, as opposed to being like, let me reframe some shit so I can accept the reality. And then, like what you said, then you go to the next step, which is, okay, if I'm not happy with what happened or didn't happen, am I in control of that? Well, maybe you are more than you think. And that's when you go back to process and then be
Yeah.
like, cool, let me rejig that.
I'm a control freak, like through and through. I like control. I seek control. It's a calming thing for me. And ultimately, in many cases, like the only thing that I cannot control is outcome.
Mm.
So I just detach myself from it entirely.
Yeah.
One of my mentees actually had a in one of her check-ins, she wrote, "This was a tough week. I'm shooting myself." And I was like, that's so good. Because if you're like, I should be this, or I should do that, and I should be here, and no, you shouldn't. You're exactly where you are supposed to be. What can you
Yep.
learn from it?
Yep. Yep.
And then it unlocks this whole new opportunity for growth.
Yeah.
You said it, fighting reality rather than accepting it.
Right.
You know, like I don't feel as much stress as I used to because I don't fight things. I just
Same.
accept it.
Yep.
I negotiate it, and then I, try to find a solution.
Yep.
But sometimes there is no solution and it just sucks.
Yeah, it is
Like,
what it is.
like I was in a wheelchair for 6 weeks. I can't do anything about that. It just sucks.
Right.
So what can I control? I can control my cognitive diet. I can read books. I can listen to podcasts. I can put a ton of effort into coaching my clients. I can showcase my journey. I did that like little four
Yep.
video kind of series on it. And lo and behold, it got easier. If I fought it every day and I'll be honest, it was it's like I cried for probably 3 weeks straight. Like every day I cried
Yep.
for like a good bit
Yep.
until it was funny. I messaged one of my mentors and I said, "Hey man, I'm struggling here. I'm exhausted all the time. I feel like I should be doing better." And I used those words.
Mm-hmm.
And he replied back to me. He goes, "I knew this message was coming. You need to chill out." And this guy's a hard motherfucker. And I did not expect that answer from him at all. And when he gave it to me, it was almost like a fog was lifted. And I was like, I've been doing exactly what I coach people out of doing.
Right.
I need to course correct right now. And so I did a ton of journaling, and it was just so clear the direction that I had to take. And as soon as I made that change, light bulbs.
Yeah, that helps a ton, right? Because you're probably mostly exhausted from the shooting.
From
Right?
the
You're
shooting and
yeah.
to be fair, man, I have never experienced fatigue, like that kind of fatigue before.
Like physiologically too. You mean?
Physiologically,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was exhausted from the moment I woke up to the moment I went to bed, regardless of coffee intake and all that
Right.
stuff.
Right.
Because your body's just working so hard to heal.
Right.
And I don't think we give enough credence to how challenging it is to heal from a traumatic injury that requires 2 surgeries at once.
Right.
So that it didn't even occur to me that what I was experiencing was what I was supposed to be experiencing.
Yeah.
I thought I was being weak.
Right. 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 That's the expectation thing.
Yeah, exactly.
Like you move expectations, and this game is like so much easier because
It's a
then you're
cheat
like, it's a cheat code. You're like, I can literally, and you're in control of expectations. So it's brilliant because then you're like, oh, I can regain control in an uncontrollable environment of life because I just move my expectations based on what happens. It's brilliant. Like you can move the goalpost. Nobody's telling you can't.
No, no. I'm like, I'll take it. I'll take any opportunity to cheat in real life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like,
Yeah.
what am I? Oh, you're cheating. It's like, at
Yeah.
what life?
Yeah, it's my game, my rules. What do you mean? I can make up the
Exactly,
rules. Yeah, yeah. Dude, I tell clients that all the time. I'm like, hey, this is your game. I have some universal principles that are required to get you the thing you want. But outside of that, we can make shit up as we go. And they're like, huh. And I'm like, yeah, you don't forget about your Instagram, who you follow, YouTube, whatever, like where you get your fitness stuff and whatever. I'm like, not even to say like you have to follow me, although you are paying me, so you should probably trust me to some extent here.
Probably.
But we can make up the rules together. Like this is your journey here, and we can do it however we want. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So, anyways, we've been taking up a bunch of your time, so I
Yeah,
appreciate
I
you
have a
coming
hard
on. Here.
stop.
Yeah,
Oh,
no,
dude,
I'll let you
my
go.
pleasure.
Dude,
My
what we'll
pleasure.
do is, if you don't mind, I'll book another one with you if you don't mind, because what I want to do is I would love to talk about the prep. That would be awesome. That would be
Sure.
great. Get some really good, like high level tidbits out of that and your journey throughout that, lessons, plans, all that, and then tie that go more into the optimal training thing around
Yeah.
people trying to train as little as possible.
Oh God, 100%.
Yeah.
Whatever
Yeah,
you want, man.
Cool. Appreciate it, dude.
All right. Talk to you later.
Yeah, we'll talk to you.
Bye.